if you push the button too early, you only get a little bit of the sound for the
Oh, really?
part, but you don't want to push it so late that you see our deer in the headlights faces before things actually get going. So it's a real highlight act, I got to tell you. Good
It
evening
is.
to Momentous Live episode 105. I'm Tristan Jutra.
I'm Tasia Custody.
I'm Will Silver.
And joining us soon, hopefully, fingers crossed, will be Gray Williams, who has been sidelined with an unforeseen incident. So we're crossing our fingers that he will be able to join us at his earliest opportunity. But we must march ahead, since we're already 5 minutes late. We got to get out of this habit. It's just too much going on.
But listen, by episode 106, we'll get the timing right on all of the things. Maybe.
How many YouTube videos did it take you to really nail it, Tasia?
Yeah. So we got a couple years. You guys.
All right. Well, if you want to find out more about us at Momentous, you can visit us at momentous.tv/links. And we have direct links to all our team members at momentous.tv/team. How up to date those links are is I'm still waiting to hear back on an unanswered email from a couple of weeks ago from said team members. So if the links are wrong,
that's I think mine are right.
Not a me problem. Yeah. And well, I've got another link that we'll share with you at the end. But let's start with a bit of a follow-up, shall we?
As usual.
This is going to be an AI extravaganza, folks. There's some big news in the AI world today that Tasia's going to tell us all about later. But first, we've got to get through some follow-up and some other AI-related stories, all sorts of goodness. But first, let's start with one of Tasia's favorite topics, and that is Ronald Reagan.
my queen and Ronald Reagan.
All right, here's a story. It's a little follow-up. Taylor Swift versus Ronald Reagan, the Ticketmaster story. I just wanted to throw this out here because there was an episode of Momentous Live, I believe it was sometime in the late fall or early winter when it was just Tasia and me, and we were talking about the whole Taylor Swift Ticketmaster debacle. It turns out to have a happy ending from Tasia, and we'll talk about that toward the end of the show today. But I just wanted to point everyone to an interesting story and video from The Verge, which talks about the history of the deregulation that helped result in the current situation today with Ticketmaster and Live Nation, and how they were allowed to merge and how they have a lock on so many significant concert venues around North America and the ticketing for most major acts. So I don't know, Tasia, before we jump on to other follow-up stories, I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at this, but did you have any other comments on Ticketmaster or Live Nation in the last few months since you were actually able to secure your tickets for your queen?
Yeah, something that I think is, if many people may not know, or something interesting about it, is the fact that, like we talk about this Ticketmaster monopoly, and then we say, well, there's really only a couple other ticket providers. There are other ticket providers. However, what I have discovered from this particular debacle with trying to secure tickets to the Eras Tour is that even though the stadium I was trying to get tickets for was SeatGeek, which seems like it's a different ticket provider, that is all still funneled through Ticketmaster. So it's this very confusing thing, but just so people understand, without taking 3 hours of your time, it's like, yeah, are there other providers? Because when everything still has to go through one giant ticketing company, it really makes people feel like, okay, well, there's a company called SeatGeek that gives me access to the ticket, but I definitely bought it through Ticketmaster, So just for everyone to keep in mind when you're buying tickets and going through the stuff, and why sometimes it's good to have competition. As I'm sure every Canadian knows, with no airline choices, you have 2 airlines and it's this or this and you're screwed. So it's kind of the same idea, where it's like when you take away healthy competition, you're allowing companies to charge whatever they want to charge, essentially the amount of fees they want to charge, and made up fees and so on.
Now, can you refresh us very quickly? What was the Taylor Swift angle to this Ticketmaster story that you and I had discussed a few months ago. And
yeah, the whole reason this has come up again and that it went to Congress is because Taylor Swift announced the Eras Tour, which is their first tour in 5 years-ish, 4.5, 5 years. And essentially it was a big kerfuffle, to say it politely. Certain fans were given early access codes, like pre-sale things, and these are supposed to be fans that were major fans of hers that were already kind of like, when COVID hit, didn't get tickets had tickets to the Loverfest, but obviously that never happened because it was canceled. So certain fans that did social media things or had tickets to that were supposed to get boosts. Unfortunately, they couldn't figure their own stuff out. They got bombarded. They weren't asking for the access codes for the pre-sale. So the pre-sale queues got completely bombarded. It shut down sites. Some people were kicked out of the queue again. I was in a queue for like 7-8 hours. I think I just like left it going, and the dude on the line like never moved. So I never even made it to like pick a seat. It canceled the whole sale. They canceled the next day sale, which was supposed to be for Capital One, which was the sponsor of the tour. So Capital One cardholders never got a shot. General sale never got a shot at all. So it was a big time problem. And then you had resale happening at astronomical prices before anybody had even really had access to get a face value seat, is the long story short. So Swifties are very don't mess with us. So it went to Congress because like, you piss off a Swiftie, you've got people to answer to, you know what I mean?
And you had Congress people embarrassing themselves by quoting Taylor Swift lyrics during the proceedings to try to,
of course,
capture some glory.
Of course. And we'll see what actually happens from it. I mean, obviously so far nothing. So, it could just be a lot of kerfuffle, but people are saying this has been an issue for a long time. It's still an issue with everybody else's concerts. It just took this big, this is the biggest grossing tour now for a female artist ever. And this is only the US leg. And it's already broken all the records for
Don't
the
tell
highest
Beyonce
grossing
fans
tour.
that.
So, well, it's just, I mean.
So if you're interested in some of the historical background to the story, as I mentioned, there's a great story and video on The Verge featuring their editor-in-chief, Nilay Patel, and it goes a bit into the history, and that's on a Decoder. There's also an audio version of that, and we'll include links in our show notes for that. In related Ticketmaster news, last week or the week before, I believe, the tickets for The Cure's upcoming tour. So noted post-punk, quasi-goth pop rockers, The Cure, led by frontman Robert Smith. They've been around since the late 70s, and they're still going. They announced their tour, and of course Ticketmaster is handling the sales because they're playing arenas all over the place. And I guess somehow Robert Smith was surprised that there are fees for Ticketmaster, and those fees can really add up. Honestly, I like that they show the fees because at least you see where the money's going. Whereas in the old days, it was just like one price. It's kind of like the whole argument. Should we see, when we go to stores, do you want to be like Europe where you see the VAT, the value added tax is included in the price on the sticker or on the shelf, which some people prefer because they know that's what they're going to pay, versus the other approach whereby you have you see the original price, and then on your receipts you see like where the tax is actually going. To be fair, on a lot of the VAT regions, they show the tax broken down on the receipt as well. But one way or another, I honestly think it's nice to show the breakdown, so it's very clear what you're paying to the different people, like the venues, the Ticketmaster, and so on. So just before I throw to you, Will, the crux of this story is, in a show of goodwill, Robert Smith decided to refund all purchasers of Cure tickets for this upcoming tour $5 to help defray the costs of the fees. Don't see Taylor Swift doing that. Will.
So I was going to say, it's interesting that you bring this up because a friend of mine, it was his birthday and we were going out to a Whitecaps game. It was a midweek game. It was called a CONCACAF Champions League. It's a sort of a regional contest, not the local MLS. which is the league that the Whitecaps play in. They also play in sort of a tournament with other teams, and this was a team from Honduras. And typically these are not busy games because they're midweek, and nobody knows what CONCACAF Champions League is unless you're a real hardcore, and nobody ends up going. But my friend, it was his birthday, and I was like, "Hey, Jeff, let's go out." And he thought I had a ticket for him. I did not. So he was trying to buy a ticket in the restaurant as we were going to the game. And he's like, "Look, I'll just buy it. Don't worry." I was like, "No, I might be able to find someone who has a ticket. I know people. I know a guy." And he said, no, just don't waste your time. I'll just buy it now. It's quicker. And so he went to go buy a $25 ticket. And it did show the breakdown of fees that ended up $43 by the time he went to check out. So it started at $25.
Wow.
The purchase price was $43. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "No way are you buying that ticket. I can get you a ticket for cheaper than that. I 100% guarantee." I ended up getting him a ticket at free because someone I knew wasn't going. And they're just like, better. I was like, "How much do you want?" They're like, "I'm not going anyways. You just take it. I'll send it to you."
You should say, you get it for free, but you're going to have to watch the series of advertisements first.
Yes, exactly. And then I went to Jeff and I was like, "Okay, so that phone call was $5, and the processing fee to email it to you is going to be another $15.
We got to start charging our friends service charges.
Yes, exactly.
But I think there's like an easy way. Mm-hmm. An easy way to take care of a lot of this outside of what these providers charge, because they are a business, they are there to make money, and whatever, they have their fees, is, artists right now separately can decide if they want to cap like resale pricing, if they want to use dynamic pricing, blah, blah. Most big artists, like, I shouldn't say this, but people like Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, don't do dynamic pricing because they know there's going to be a huge surge, and then that would create like wackadoo pricing.
Harry Styles.
Right. So they kind of can already opt out of that. That's one part of it where it's kind of like, okay, I guess if you want to put that on the artist, but the one thing that should be federally mandated across the board is a cap on resale.
Yes.
If you cap resale, which every ticket provider has the technology to do on the back end, when you go to resell a ticket, that right there stops. I mean, I'm not an expert at this, but I would argue that it would stop most of the scalping, because what is in it for any big scalper to be like, "We scalp all these tickets and then I can only charge 5% more or 10% more." Like, it's more work than what it's worth. Like, what do they care? Mm-hmm. So I honestly feel like that is the simplest solution. And then you don't have this panic of like people trying to get these tickets, and then they make a stupid decision and they buy, because they have FOMO, and they spend all these thousands of dollars on tickets, and then they have like,
I have no self-control.
Like, what did I do? Blah, blah, blah. So I just think that would be something that would really help.
Why do you want to hurt the little guys? Why do you want to hurt those little entrepreneur scalpers? I mean, given that Ticketmaster also don't they have a stake in StubHub as well too, which is where a lot of that stuff is happening? But wouldn't one of the knock-on effects of that be you just see a whole bunch more scalpers hanging around outside the stadiums and get that whole nonsense again?
That's how it was back in the day.
So that's what you prefer?
Yeah, what do I care? I have tickets. That's why I'm at
You got to wade through all those middle-aged dudes saying, tickets. What they usually say, anyone buying and anyone selling any tickets is what they usually say. But
they're not going to do that anymore because everything's digital. So it's like,
and that's what some artists are doing, is preventing resale too. That's a whole other sticky wicket.
Which, wasn't it The Cure or somebody was doing that too? And I was like, that's actually I don't know that that's a great move, because the issue there becomes, if you can no longer attend the show, now you're screwed.
I think it was another artist, but I remember seeing something about that too. Yeah. All right. Well, we're not going to solve the entire problem today, so let's move on to some other fun antitrust, anti-competitive type of news, which I think is a little rich. And I really wish Gray was here for this. And if he does manage to show up, we'll get his 2 cents. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission in the United States, finalizes a $245 million fine against Epic Games to refund Fortnite players. So Fortnite, which is a supposedly free game, but has lots of in-game purchases that you can you can make for emotes and flair costumes and this and that and the other thing. But I guess, basically they're saying that they made it a little too easy, including for minors to buy things. They employed dark patterns, which we've talked about previously here on Momentous Live, where it's really easy to do certain things to make the company money. It's really easy to avoid those things or get refunds or back out of those decisions and whatnot. The reason why I find it's a little rich is because the CEO of Epic Games has been like railing against Apple for years now about the the so-called Apple tax, the 30% that Apple takes from app purchases, in-app purchases, including the stuff that you might get through Fortnite. Apple takes anywhere from 15 to 30%, and that's a huge cost for certain developers. I always thought it was funny because Epic was like a huge, and it's really the smaller guys that are maybe affected more than this, and they're just selling digital goods which have like near 100% profit margin as it is, and they were like, we got to crack open iOS so we can have other app stores in there, and burr, 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 burr. And of course, Microsoft would love to have an Xbox, dedicated app store in iOS as well. Similar kind of issues exist around the Android operating system too. Google's not super keen on having third-party app stores. It's technically possible if you're able to sideload things in there. Anyhow, so Epic Games is not so pure as the driven snow, as it turns out, because they do a lot of shady stuff too. That's all. Will, anything to add? Have you ever on the in-game in-app purchase or any of that kind of stuff?
Other than, I guess the only thing about in-app purchase, I mean, full disclosure, I work for a video game company. I'm not going to discuss anything that would be under an NDA, but I think it's not a big secret that I think a lot of the gaming industry is going towards sort of the microtransactions and the additional purchases or downloads or extra skins for characters or vehicles or what have you. And this has actually changed the way that video games are produced. So you don't necessarily have to dump $300 million into Gears of War with a team of 500 people. You can have a team of 20 or 30 people and just iterate, and I think there's something great about that iteration and about unlocking creativity, because it allows for a little bit more boutique games, because you don't necessarily have to go, wow, we're putting $300 million down on this. This better work. This better be in the formula of a white male main hero with brown hair, who's ruggedly good looking and goes on adventures.
Has a little salt in his pepper, maybe?
Yeah. Instead, we can have these more niche games, about, I don't know, a fire fairy going on a journey to give light to the world. I'm just making all this stuff up. But, this is not a game that someone would put $300 million into producing, right? Because it's not a guaranteed grand slam. So, or it's not an already known property. Like EA was, back in the 2000s was doing a lot of buying up the, Star Wars or Bond or, NHL, and just doing that because those are established franchises and you don't have to come up with a new story. So I think there's something to be said for having these sort of other ways of funding a game and to iterate. And, obviously they were doing shady stuff, but this is why we need to regulate this as well. And I think, some of it seems silly to me. I mean, like I play an iPad game where like when the new character comes out, you can buy it right away instead of earning it. And it's like $150 to buy it. I'm like, I'm not spending $150 on a digital character. I'll just grind. I'll grind it away.
Or just grab your parents' credit card.
Yeah, exactly. So, they do these things where it sort of is like FOMO, or like, oh, I love that character. I want to get it right away. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, you do have to exhibit willpower. But for me, if it was $5, it'd be a lot more tempting than $150. Yeah. There's no freaking way I'm buying a character for $150. So
Yeah, so some of those general principles we've discussed in the past are, it's one thing to pay for adornments, it's another thing altogether to like pay to win, which is
Yes.
because then it's just an arms race, and whoever has the most money is going to win at these games, and that's really no fun for most people, and it's really targeting whales. But then there's other issues like, not tricking people into playing, not using dark patterns tricking people into paying, or using dark patterns to make it hard not to pay or to get refunds and the like. And you don't want to target children, minors, obviously. So with this plan from the FTC in the US, refunds will be available to parents whose children made an unauthorized credit card purchase in the Epic Games store between January 2017 and November 2018. Also, Fortnite players who were charged in-game currency known as V-Bucks for unwanted in-game items such as cosmetics, llamas, or battle passes between January 27 and September 2022, and Fortnite players whose accounts were locked between January 2017 and September 2022 after disputing unauthorized charges with their credit card companies. So can you imagine some stuff goes on your credit card? Maybe you were trying to get a refund and they weren't having it, or your kid charged some stuff on your credit card, and then so you and Fortnite or Epic Games wasn't helping you out, so you did try to do a chargeback from your credit card company, and then Epic Games and Fortnite goes, we're going to lock your account. So that's a little heavy-handed as well. The thing is, so many large tech companies nowadays, they don't really have much in the way of customer service. So it's hard to, I'm looking at you, Instagram. Still want the right username for our account. But that's
another company quickly.
Sure.
I had a thing with Dropbox where there's a pop-up that came something about backing up my files and do you want to look at old files? And I clicked yes. And then I realized I got charged like $50 or something like that. And I wasn't aware that there was a charge for it. So I emailed them and I'm like, hey, dude, I didn't want this. I just clicked a box. Like, I didn't realize that there was money at the end of it. I don't want that service. I was just going to try it out and see what it was like. I don't want to pay for it. And they said, okay. So that was actually a good interaction. It was like, wow, I kind of felt like it was a bit clickbaity. It was sort of like, hey, you could do this, but it wasn't clear that there was an actual charge for it. So, I do have to give at least Dropbox some credit. I mean, I didn't like how they introduced that to me and didn't make it clear, but at least they took the charge off my credit card. So,
well, that's awfully nice of them. I have to admit, I've dealt with both Squarespace and Vimeo as well, and their customer service has actually been pretty responsive. Again, slightly smaller companies, like mid-tier companies, sort of like a Dropbox, you tend to have a bit better luck with them than the huge monoliths such as Google or Meta, unless of course you're buying ads. Then they'll give you all the service in the world. Exactly. Yeah. So moving on to another quick bit of follow. One last thing. If anyone is interested, is a U.S. resident and is interested in seeing if they are eligible for a refund from Epic Games Fortnite, they can go to ftc.gov/Fortnite. We'll include that link in our show notes as well. And maybe you can get yourself a couple of bucks to then buy some more skins with. Put it back into the circular economy. Another quick little bit of follow up is kind of just as we dip our toes into the AI news this week. A couple of months ago, we talked about a streaming show on Twitch called Nothing Forever, which was a bit of a parody of Seinfeld and featured variations of the 4 core Seinfeld characters with AI generated scripts, AI generated environments, and the like. And it was bizarre and kind of funny, absurd. And at times it had tens of thousands of people watching at once. And the chat was going nuts on the right-hand side. It then got suspended because there was something happened with the version of Chat GPT. It's not Chat GPT, of GPT 3.5 that they had been using. And they had to go back to a previous model known as Da Vinci. And I think that's at that point, things started going a little off the rails. And in some of the stand-up comedy bits that the parody Jerry Seinfeld, his name was Larry something, I can't remember the whole name. He would do these little stand-up bits like on the Seinfeld show. And then he was getting into jokes that were maybe considered by some to be transphobic or homophobic. It's interesting because when you actually look at the details, what he says is that he had been thinking about making those kind of jokes, but that he didn't want to because of the consequences. But that was enough because of the things he said in that context that the account got suspended. So they went and retooled. And adapted or adjusted the model that they were using for the script generation. While they were at it, it seems like they've also retooled the characters. The voices seem pretty similar, but the characters look different. The environments are different. The interstitials are different. It's not as Seinfeld anymore. So I'm not sure if they had gotten a notice from NBC or one of the other production companies involved there. Maybe what's his face from one of the producers,
Larry David
from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Maybe they didn't want to be caught up in all this. So with all that being said, Nothing Forever is now back live again at twitch.tv/watchmeforever. Unfortunately, though, there are only about 676 simultaneous viewers at the moment. So it's not nearly as much going on. It's really been neutered, and a lot of people are a little sad. I mean, not that it was super duper edgy before, but in the things they made in the name of safety, and we're going to talk about it a little bit with some of these other AIs a little later on, it's kind of, it's not the same, and people are noticing that. So it seems like they kind of missed the window. They were offline a little too long, and the changes they made weren't quite what the audience was hoping for. And it's kind of like sad trombone now. But we've got links in the show notes for a little bit of the story from Wikipedia on Nothing Forever for anyone who is interested in checking that out. And I know Tasia will be tuning into that because she loves her AI generated Seinfeld parodies.
Yes.
Yes, we all do. All right. Now, a bit more follow-up, something that we've been talking about since the end of November, early December, Chat GPT. And last week, GPT-4 was released, and it's a lot more powerful in certain ways. It's quite interesting. But apparently, just in the last day or two, I was not able to log in for a while. People were I guess it was yesterday morning, people were losing their minds. Oh, ChatGPT's offline, blah, blah, blah. Both the classic version 3.5 and the newer version 4.0, even to ChatGPT Plus members, the people are paying, was offline. Then eventually, after a few hours, came back online. But people's histories of their chats which exist in the sidebar were missing. Now that's happened a couple of times. But this time it was for a reason, because apparently there was a bug that whereby people were seeing other people's conversation histories.
What?
So that's not a great bug to have. Not the full conversations, just the titles. So, I mean, just a quick thing. And we've said this before, if you're going to be using any of these tools, and they say this very much when you are starting to use any of them, they say, don't use, sensitive or personally identifiable information in this system, because you never know how it'll be absorbed into the language model going forward. Or, we could have a bug in the system, and whether it's ChatGPT or, the Bing Chat or Bing Copilot or Google Bard, just be a little mindful. Even when you're doing things like composing emails or letters, and you're looking for a little help on that, you could do things like removing names and just putting in square brackets like client name, company name, my name, etc. If you would rather not that information get into there. And also be mindful of the auto-generated title that is often given to your past chats that you can see down the sidebar in ChatGPT, and you can actually edit those if you want to make it a little bit more generic and want to protect what's going on in there. So just a word to the wise, but things are slowly coming back online. The ChatGPT functionality is back, but the conversation histories as of about an hour ago were still not yet available. In other slightly happier news, and Will's going to be all over this, I'm sure, Midjourney version 5. So Midjourney is one of these AI, generative AI platforms that we've talked about, along with DALL-E and Crayon and Stable Diffusion. Midjourney has been becoming, and they're all becoming more and more powerful. But the latest version, Midjourney version 5, stuns with photorealistic imagery. and 5-fingered hands.
What?
What a
How about
contrast.
teeth?
Well, I'm not. We'll see about the teeth. But just if you're looking at if you happen to be watching the streamed version of this or later on YouTube, if you see some of the images coming through are crazy photorealistic. The skin, the lighting effects. We've got some images of the comparison between version 3, version 4, and version 5. In this case, it's a muscular barbarian with weapons beside a CRT television set, cinematic 8K studio lighting. Now, those prompts are the secret sauce to getting the type of imagery that you're looking for. But you can see from version 3 to 4 to 5, the evolution and how much better it is getting there. Those are a little small. I can't count the number of fingers or teeth on them, but we're even seeing amazing shots with lighting and reflections and the like. We've got some sloppy cheeseburger imagery, which I'm in. I'm all in. But yeah, some of these things with bokeh as well, some natural sort of soft focus in foregrounds and backgrounds, a clown on a subway. And here we go. Tasia, what's your take on this? I know you've been using some AI tools so far. This barbarian looks a little bit like David Harbour, getting ready
Yes.
for
He
his
does.
his
I was
next.
gonna say the face is David Harbour.
Have you had a chance to play with any of the image generation platforms before we get over to Will?
No, I don't play with the image ones because it creeps me out a little bit, and I always still question like where they're pulling the content from and if there's like a lot of copyright issues. So I
Ah,
haven't dabbled, but I know, Will, you're deep into the AI image generation.
yeah. Well, it's interesting you say about copyright because I think one of our future stories might be talking about that. But I'm very curious about this. I am subscribed. I've ran out of all my tokens for this month, so I have to wait a couple weeks. But no, it looks pretty amazing. People that I know at work have said really good things about it. It is kind of a big leap forward. I mean, we all knew that they were going to figure out the finger thing eventually. Like, and it's funny because version 4 was really good on a lot of stuff, but it's like a friend of mine at work said it's really good from like 10,000 feet away. If you start zooming in on things, you'll notice that perspective is slightly off. Like their neck is broken and their head is turned too far, or there's too many fingers, or if you zoom on in the airplane, the windows are too close together at one point, or there's too many windows. So this looks like it's a big improvement. It's still amazing. I mean, we're getting into nitpicky stuff here, but I think this is just, and we're just at the early stages of this. This is a really powerful tool, and as someone who creates graphics and images for various things, for video, for social media, for all sorts of platforms, there's just a lot you can do with this. Even if I think that it's like when Photoshop first came out, as my dad joked, it's like the first thing everybody wanted to do was put Hitler's head on somebody's body. It's like it's you want to do the funny things first, but when you get down to it, there's a lot of power here that you could utilize, making backgrounds for things, or someone is, their hand is slightly turned or something. Maybe you could generate another hand in that position and put it in that spot. I mean, there's just a lot that you can do that could aid in making graphics. Or another thing, for example, is I know that I work with a lot of artists, and they have maquettes or things that they move around just to see how a human body would look like in certain positions. And they'll often be going on the internet trying to find reference photos. So instead of Hitler's head on somebody's body, now it's Donald Trump kissing Vladimir Putin seems to be the thing that but
people need help.
But yeah, just like references and stuff like that, I think there's just a lot of opportunity for this to be a very useful tool.
And it's still not perfect. You still need some work on the prompts. There's still a little bit of trial and error. One of the good pieces of advice that user on Twitter is reminding us all, his name is Del Walker. be extra critical of any political imagery, especially photography that you see online that is trying to incite a reaction, because we're rapidly getting into the part where it's getting increasingly hard to tell real stuff from fake stuff. We've heard about deep fakes. We're going to talk a little bit more about some of the video generation tools available in a bit. But with the audio generation, video generation, image generation, it's people are going to have to be extra vigilant. And some of these tools are building in safeguards. I was playing with one tool that we'll talk about a little bit later that would not let me do something with a Google logo on it, because as I was trying to create a hero image for today's episode for a Google Bard. And so is trying to avoid brands, copyrighted stuff, public figures, and the like. So there's going to be some discussion about that. Those safety features, do they go too far? Do they not go far enough? And so on. All right, moving into a few other things, some of the stuff that we've been holding on to for a little bit, but we're going to breeze through them pretty quickly until we get to our main story. Some tools for anyone that has been playing with some of these AI platforms. There is a plagiarism checker and AI detector called Originality AI that just want to bring to your attention. Apparently, OpenAI tried to make one of their own, and it didn't work that well. So there's a whole bunch of these that have popped up. Can't vouch for any of them. Haven't tried any of them myself, but I'm sure there are reviews. The idea is that you may want to run some of your AI generated text through tools like this to make it feel as human as possible, just in case, even though they're claiming otherwise at the moment, but just in case search engines like Google start to penalize websites that are using AI to help to generate reams and reams of SEO or search engine optimization content for their website. So we just need to be a little bit careful of that. And a lot of this stuff is good for first draft type of situations. Tasia, have you availed yourself of any of the AI checking tools yet in your text generation pursuits so far?
I haven't used them yet, but I do think it would be interesting to make a video to see like how accurate they are, like if they could pick it up, like knowing what I generated. I write an essay or something using either Bard or ChatGPT, and then
Momentous is looking forward to our commission check.
Content idea.
Another fun little tool, if you want a whole bunch of chatbots in one place. A few weeks ago, it was actually early February now, but there's been so many stories. We've just been pushing things over and over again. Quora has opened up its new AI chatbot app, Poe, to the general public. And I downloaded this back at the time. And it's, if you don't mind the mobile sort of interface, it's handy having. Last time I checked, there were 4 different chatbots in one place. One, two, three, four, 5. Actually, there's 6 now, so they're adding more and more. We've got a few that are powered by OpenAI. There's Sage and ChatGPT and Dragonfly, and I think those are all the OpenAI ones. And then there's also ChatGPT 4, and then there's Claude and Claude Plus. So Claude Plus and ChatGPT 4 both have limited access, so you may need to put in your own credentials there. But again, this is mobile only from what I understand, and it's a little awkward if you're trying to copy and paste stuff in and out. I mean, on a Mac, it's easy because you can go back and forth from your mobile device to your Mac pretty easily, but it's not quite as streamlined as just doing it all on your desktop. But it's actually kind of interesting to put the same query to the different types of chatbots that are there and seeing what they come up with. Looks like we've got a little bit of an update from Gray, and he will not be able to join us, it seems, unfortunately, this evening. So unless there's a last minute appearance to say hi and bye. So check out Poe from Quora, and Quora is a question and answer platform that's social Q&As. It's been around for years and years. Historically, it had a lot of smart folks on there, including literal rocket scientists. I've heard from some folks in the past that, or more recently, that it's not as great as it used to be. So maybe that's why they're making the switch to AI. Maybe these chatbots are a little bit more reliable than humans nowadays. Not to be left out, Snapchat is releasing its own AI chatbot powered by ChatGPT. And that's one of the things that is kind of an angle of this story, is that OpenAI's GPT 3.5 and GPT-4 platforms, they also license them via their API or application programming interface to other platforms. So hence the Microsoft deal, which is including GPT in Bing that we've talked about previously, and now in Poe, but now Snapchat. So we're going to have these chatbots everywhere, which raises some questions about the type of users who might get in there and start messing about. One of the funny things that Snapchat actually has done is it's saying sorry in advance that it may tell you things that are wrong. So these sometimes are known as hallucinations when it just totally makes things up. We've seen this with Bing and ChatGPT so far, and Snapchat is not immune from this sort of notion either. So be careful. Now, Tasia, you've got some, I know of at least one youngster in your life in the form of a niece. Is she on the socials, and is she at all interested in the AI? And what do you think of young people getting their hands on these powerful chatbots and what they might get up to with them, especially embedded in social platforms? They don't have to make up their own messages anymore to people.
That's true. I feel like it's like the younger generation that I worry about with that. So, like my niece is 18, she's pretty well educated. She's on all the socials, but like she could school us all on, and she did school me on the weekends on certain things.
On TikTok?
Actually, yes, I was allowed to be in a TikTok of hers, and she told me that I can't do the millennial pause, which is when you take a breath before you start talking.
To make sure it's running?
You have to start right away.
Right.
But I feel like like high school kids and like younger, like I know people that give like their 12-year-olds devices and 11-year-olds, and like this is the type of stuff that worries me with that. Because they don't, if they don't know the difference, and if you as the guardian are not well versed enough to be able to put the parental controls in place or understand even what some of this technology is, and you don't know what they're doing on there, it scares me.
And next thing you know, they're writing poems about Hitler and sending them into their friends in Snapchat.
And you're getting a letter from the principal.
And it's Nazis all the way down.
The whole thing.
So, just on a side story, I've been stopped a couple times on Midjourney from generating an image. And did I tell you guys this? Did I already say it? I can't remember. But one time I was doing I was trying to do the Avengers in the style of Wes Anderson, and so I was like $1 million or millionaire playboy extraordinaire Tony Stark in front of futuristic car, like 8K Unreal Engine, photorealistic, atmospheric lighting, and they're like, you can't use the word playboy.
Oh, it wasn't the Tony Stark it had a problem with?
No,
it was Playboy?
It was Playboy. Because, and then another thing was like lost wreckage of a crashed plane, explorer going to find it or whatever. Crashed plane was something that I could not Google. And it's like, and the message is kind of scary. It's like the developers have been contacted. You're using forbidden prompts or something like that. I'm like, cry me a river.
So it's like the nanny version of this app. Okay, yeah, fun. And that's the sort of thing that these are legitimate discussions to be had about what we're making available to the general public and what guardrails are we putting on that. But then for people who are mature adults and grown-ups and don't mind paying for access to some of these things, might be remove some of these guardrails and hope that people.
But I also was
more
paying.
responsible.
Like
you weren't paying enough, obviously.
Yeah, but apparently I wasn't paying. I wasn't paying for that to be unlocked, but I was a paying participant.
You need the plane crash Playboy unlock.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the title of our next episode. Okay. All right. Another tool for your consideration. Now, this is a multimodal tool called Runway that just came across my desk like yesterday. It's at runwayml.com, and it has a whole suite of tools for generating images, videos. You can infinitely expand images. You can reimagine them. You can train your own custom models. You can erase things from images. It's wild. Erase things from videos, slow-mo, do super slow-mo on stuff where it interpolates the frames. It will do tracking as well of certain objects if you want to be superimposing various elements. It's a whole lot of tools. So, and this is, and the reason why this was in the news, because it's a Gen 2 as they refer to it. And they show some examples of the differences between Gen 1 and Gen 2 on their website. But there's and this is a company I hadn't even heard of before. There's so many players in this space right now that are doing really interesting things. So, well, you might want to try that. You can try it for free.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
But then the pricing, the basic free,
Yeah.
you get a number of credits, and then standard's $12 US per user per month. Pro is $28 US per user per month. And if you want an enterprise version, contact us. That's always my favorite, because they're coming for your wallet then when you got to use the contact us for pricing. So that is runway.ai. Oh, and I've got one other link here I can show you here. Actually, this is just a little video that explains some of the stuff. It's wild, the quality of some of the stuff that's coming out. Whether it's photorealistic stuff or impressionistic stuff as well. So images is one thing, but video from existing imagery or from scratch. Yeah, and this is where it shows you the before and after. And that's the thing. It's like we've only been talking about this stuff for like a year, really. Remember when we used to talk about NFTs? I remember we used to talk about Elon Musk all the time. To be fair, there's going to be more Elon. We'll see how much.
This is a much better NFTs. Topic. I don't know if I've made it clear how much I dislike Elon, but
I'm sure the feeling's mutual. Anyhow, because unless you give me $8.
Yeah.
So check out runwayml.com to see yet another wild tool. Again, Microsoft is not slowing down in this department. We've been playing with Bing Chat, which is through the Bing search engine and the Edge web browser and into the Windows taskbar. I'm not sure if it's actually made it there yet, but they've announced Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is bringing the GPT-4, which they've been using for a while, not telling anybody about. We talked about that last week. Bringing those tools and embedding them into things like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Teams. So you could think of this like as a supercharged Clippy, right? It's like, it looks like you're writing a letter. How about I just write the whole darn thing for you? It sounds good to me, Clippy. I don't know if they'll actually bring back Clippy. Some people are actually missing Clippy now, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's funny because those people who miss Clippy probably hated Clippy. People hated Clippy when he was around.
People hated Clippy.
Yeah.
We'll just wait till Clippy comes back and turns the entire world into paper clips with the power of AI. Anyhow, this is actually pretty interesting to me. We use the Microsoft 365 platform at our company, and we will be exploring on what ways this might make sense. You need to always just be careful, and I know you guys both know this. Be careful of getting too deep into tools.
Yes.
It's really easy to spend a lot of time on tools and it's taking time away from actually working on, producing and shipping. But sometimes these tools can save us a lot of time. And most people hate email. And if you could have something that could help you, right, especially when it's really kind of drudgerous email that you just need to like bang off some responses to, or you maybe need help doing follow-up emails and the like. I've played around with it a little bit. In most cases, A/B testing with others, such as my wife Stephanie, she still prefers mine, even without telling her which is mine and which is the AI. But they're just going to get better and better, right? We're still, like I said, we've been talking about this stuff for only a year, and just imagine what it's going to be like in another year, in another 5 years. And I hear some crunkling going on there.
I'm sorry. My cat's here, and he has a weird thing about eating plastic, and I had to take a wrapper.
All right. The beatings will continue until morale improves. So Microsoft is also bringing the DALL-E's AI image generation to Bing. So DALL-E was created by OpenAI, which is also responsible for ChatGPT and GPT-4. So this is wild because this is free and we can play with this right away. This was just announced today, I believe, and I was already messing with it today. There's a couple of articles on the topic, how to use Bing Image Creator to generate AI images for free. So you can go right to the website there, and I can I'll tell it to draw a or create a YouTube thumbnail featuring a robot version of William Shakespeare. And this is a simplified version of a quote I used to actually generate our artwork for today's episode. I didn't even use the YouTube part of it. It's surprisingly quick. It takes about a minute. And for now, it's free. I haven't. It's a preview, free preview. I'm not sure if there are any credits that you use up or anything like that yet. But well, if you're while you're waiting for your mid journey to flip over into your next payment period, there maybe you can mess with this. Again, I don't think it's not gonna be nearly as refined as Mid Journey version 5. But Stephanie this afternoon was trying to generate some photos of people that were
that's horrifying.
What do we got here? You did it. Yeah, here's so funny. And just like most of these other platforms, they don't do text well. Instead of, it's got kind of like a YouTube style logo, except it says Tulo instead of tube. And it's got a robot with a Shakespearean ruff and sort of skirt thing there, and a little screen behind its head. We've got another version that doesn't seem Shakespearean at all. Maybe it's a street urchin type hat or something. It's more full on robot. Another that seems more of a cyborg type. And another one standing in front of, again, a modified YouTube logo. So it's interesting adding the YouTube modifier in there. Really, it added the elements of red and the YouTube logo to 3 out of the 4 images there. Anyhow, so you can check that out in the links in the show notes. Now, Tasia, I know that most of your YouTube thumbnails feature your lovely visage in them. Might you consider using some AI image generation platforms to see what monstrosities it could come up with?
I mean, first of all, I would have to do it in the right size for a YouTube thumbnail. And second, again, I would just worry about, because like I feel like YouTube flags everything. So to me, it's like if they can flag even like a 5-second clip of a song, then it's kind of like I just worry about where it's pulling stuff from. So no.
Yeah,
also because the whole thumbnail thing is like on YouTube is just so specific and crazy. And like people have team members dedicated to making thumbnails. It's wild.
Yes. It's a whole science.
It's one I will never understand, I don't think, but
and look, we've got 4 YouTube thumbnails featuring Tasia Custodi. There you go, Tasia. I guess it doesn't exactly know who you are.
I mean, whoa.
Not bad. They look relatively human.
The one on the bottom right is a bit of a horror show. And doesn't look anything like Tasia.
Human?
It could be a... Hey, that's kind of judgy. I mean, people come in all shapes and sizes as well. Diversity is our strength.
Yes.
But we just got to zoom in on the teeth. I mean, the teeth look okay to me here. Anyhow, so that's what you all are going to be doing tonight, playing with Bing AI image, Bing Image Generator. And not to be outdone, Adobe has built its Firefly AI art generator to avoid bias and copyright issues. Now, to address some of your concerns here, Tasia, about where the source is from all this stuff. Now, again, these are generative platforms, so they are being informed by whatever their data set is, but they're not straight up copying. Like they can do things. There's no copyright on someone's style. You can do like something in the style of any artist, be they dead like Van Gogh or alive like Shepard Fairey. Is he still alive? And so like that's not something that can be copyrighted. You can't copyright a style of music either. So when people are however, and this is some of the edge cases we talked about previously, when you are seeing things like watermarks included in there, like that doesn't mean that the entire image was from Getty Images or something like that. That means that was part of the data set that it's being used to throw in the blender and then create something new. So I get your point, Tasia, about being concerned about copyright and all that kind of stuff. But most of this stuff is because it's creating something new. It's not generally being flagged yet, but of course we've talked also about people being concerned, and if they're in the data sets, they get a little bit of credit for that, or can they remove themselves from data sets and whatnot. So this is what Adobe is trying to address here. Will, do you want to walk us through this story a little bit as a long-time
Sure.
Adobe user, and then maybe we can get
Yeah.
Tasia's take on if this is something that she might consider.
Yeah, and maybe just to zoom out a bit,
Mhm.
using a visual metaphor,
I see what you did there.
yeah. So Adobe has actually been using what you might term AI for a while, but not in terms of image generation. So they have actually done a really amazing job of, particularly the one that pops up for me is something called content aware fill. And what it is you might, select an area in an image and say, fill this with what will work in the background, right? So try to match up, this square that I've selected with everything else going on in the image. And it actually does a really good job, and it's gotten a lot better. It used to fail on things like wires or waves or things like that, but it does a really good job of reading the image, and you can select where it samples from and trying to predict where to put other content. So this is great if you want to, like, if there's 3 people walking on a beach and you're like, I don't like Harold. I don't like that he was in this image. And you just select him.
Bye, Harold.
By Harold, and the beach and the water just go where Harold was. So it's a really great tool for that.
It's kind of like an advanced version of the healing tool that healing brush they've had for decades.
And cloning as well. They actually have a clone stamp where you can select an area. But this is actually the program interpreting the image and then adding information that's available to it from the image and trying to match it up. And it does a really good job of matching lines and stuff like that, or it's gotten a lot better. This is like what we've been talking about with Midjourney, where this is actually, generating images using, a model, sampling other source material or data sets. And, this is what I really want in some ways. And, Adobe is, I trust them. And I think if they're doing this and they haven't quite released it yet, they're waiting till it's fully baked, or at least baked enough. And I think they are going to be very concerned about copyright issues. They're a fairly big company. They're not going to put these tools in people's hands, I think, if they haven't worked some of this out. Now, some people might think, because Photoshop tends to include a lot of tools, I wouldn't be surprised if the feedback is that it's a little neutered or not as powerful as something like Midjourney, because they'll probably err on the side of caution. They'll probably err on the side of, being more generic, and it may not be what everybody wants, but I think it'll still be a useful tool. But we'll see. I have heard that there's people already using, various prototype versions of it.
Yeah.
So,
and you can sign up on the waiting list too. So they're hoping to sidestep the issue by training the data set on their own Adobe stock images, what they actually own the rights to. So with that in mind, Tasia, how might you feel about signing up for the Adobe Firefly trial at adobe.com/sensei/generative-ai/firefly.html?
That is the longest.
It's safe.
Yeah.
It rolls off the tongue.
I think we need to go back to, say, like, spelling out entire URLs again, just like it was in the 90s, or email addresses where it's like Tristan Jutra, all one word, at. So,
yes.
What are your thoughts on this? They're just using their own data set here. So does that make you feel a little comfortable?
I think so.
All right.
I think I would play around with it if I had time.
Well, I look forward to seeing some of your Adobe-inspired generative art. All right. One last thing before we get into our big story. Again, if anyone's got any young folks in their life or people that are young at heart, again, not to be left out, Roblox has launched its first generative AI game creation tools. The Code Assist and Material Generator betas hope to make game creation less tedious. So we were talking about text, we're talking about images, we're talking about 3D images, we're talking a couple of weeks ago, video, and now game level design. Will, you on board? I know you don't really play Roblox. Do you have any young people in your life that are Roblox adjacent?
I do. I actually had a conversation about Roblox, a rather lengthy conversation with some friends who have kids a little while ago, because being in the video game world, I heard some stories just about various things about the behind the scenes about Roblox, and I was just wondering about what their experience was. My friend Dan actually said that most of the games are not that great. That it's sort of a community of people generating games, and there's a lot of trash out there.
Most people aren't great at level design, are they? Or game design.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to see if this adds better stuff or just more stuff, which may not be necessarily great. So the other thing he said is, as soon as someone comes up with a good game concept, there's like 107 clones of that thing. So it's just, to me, it sounds like not a great platform, but it's like one of the most popular platforms in the world. So for gaming.
And again, those tools are version 1. We'll see how they are. I mean, in the example, we saw changing the color of a car, making it float, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, even starting with basic stuff like that, it's kind of hard to screw up. But we with Minecraft, for example, it was years ago, we had people, building entire recreations of Starship Enterprise, or building like working computers inside Minecraft. So what are we going to see inside Roblox now, especially with AI assisted tools? And how long is it going to be for a platform like Minecraft to get in on the AI tool side of things? Real quick here, before we get to our main Google story, there are a few other Google AI related stories that we've been sitting on for a bit. One is Google's Palm E is a generalist robot brain that takes commands. So it adds vision to its AI model to guide a robot without special training. Just make sure you keep your distance so it doesn't actually accidentally maybe tear off your arm or something like that. But we all trust Google, right, Tasia? And it's not going to hurt anybody, right? So we trust. So that's known as Palm E. And again, still early days, folks. What else we have from Google? They announced their AI features in Gmail and Google Docs, just like we talked about with Microsoft 365, adding the GPT tools into Excel and Word and PowerPoint. So Google is not lying down on the job here. So for those of us who are using the Google Workspace, a whole bunch of AI tools there. And then, of course, there is Anthropic, which is a Google-backed thing that has its own chatbot named Claude. And we mentioned Claude in the Poe app from Quora. But now it's got a new version of Claude that's less likely to produce harmful output than some of its competitors. So Google was staying pretty quiet on this space, and now they're going whole hog, whether it's through Google proper or Anthropic themselves. So Tasia, of these 3 little Google stories that we've been sitting on before we get to our big one, any comments on there, especially as regards Google Workspace? Maybe you could get a robot to use Gmail and Google Docs AI tools too. What do you think?
Well, I think in terms of the Google Workspace story, that to me is just like a natural extension of like their smart campus features. So over the last year-ish, they were introducing their smart campus features, which were like, you can have like link chips inside of your doc that it'll automatically create a clickable link that you can link out to. You can mention people and other docs that you want to link to, stuff, just different things like that. So I think this is like a natural extension of that, which everything is all about saving time, which I love, and keeping you in the ecosystem.
How about the robot, which I just realized now we didn't have the screen sharing on when the robot video was playing there. What would it take for you to allow something like this in your home, Tasia, given how much you trust Google?
Oh Lord, no, I don't.
It's Palm E. It's such a cute name.
Yeah, but you want to talk about data? Like, it's one thing to use like these chat bots. It's another thing to have like a camera in your home capturing everything, and like they're recording that data.
Like we
I
were
know
talking
I
about
have
with
smart
Amazon's
speakers, but
inside
it's like,
indoor drones, right?
geez, Louise.
Look, it can
No.
take chips out of a drawer for you.
I can do that too.
But if
Yeah.
you had one of these, would you? I mean, in the meantime, you can train your cats, Will. But
I was
Yeah.
gonna say we could train our pets to do this, I think.
okay, and we ready for it? So we
Yeah.
made you wait. Oh, it's time to end the show. Bye bye. Good night, everyone. In other news, the big news of today, Google is now giving some Pixel superfans to try out Google Bard. So it's other large language model, not to be confused with Claude, which is from Anthropic, which is backed by Google. And so Bard is, I think it's based on Lambda, not to be confused with Meta's Llama. All these names are getting really confusing. But Tasia, as a Pixel superfan,
Mhm.
you excitedly texted us today and told us that you managed to gain access to Google Bard and you were going to be hustling to make a video on it right away. Now, are you getting Google Bard to write the script for your video about Google Bard?
I did not. I wrote the script myself, but I'm kind of putting it through the same paces that I put Chat GPT through. I do want to clarify one thing though. It's not just Pixel users, because I got an email from Google Nest, and
Oh,
that's how I was able
super
to get
fans as well.
access.
Okay.
Right? And it was
And of
very
course, journalists.
random.
And, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, well, this is weird. And then I was like, oh my God, yes, I'll go on the, like, absolutely, I'll get on the wait list. And like, I'm looking right now, and the difference in the times, it was at 8:30 in the morning that I got the invite to, like, join. Obviously, like 4 minutes later, I was like, yes, I'd like to go on the wait list. And then by 2:30 in the afternoon, I was let in or off the wait list or whatever. So it's connected to your Google account. But if someone is in the US and I believe also the UK, you can just go to bard.google.com and click join waitlist, and you'll sign in via your Google account if you're not signed in already, and you can go on the waitlist. So it's just a bit of a false news, no, fake news. What are you
Fake
calling
news.
me? Fake news. So it's not just like Pixel users, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, yeah, that was one of the groups included was the Pixel super fans. So it sounds like
Yeah.
Our live crack momentous Google correspondent Tasia has clarified the story. So maybe certain Nest users, you wonder what algorithm they use to choose people for this. Maybe it's based on their social media influence or the like. Of course,
Yeah.
we've
And
got
like,
journalists, and that's like an obvious one. But you're kind of getting up there.
well, and I don't know if they're like what algorithm they're using to verify the Google accounts that are requesting access, or if they're just literally giving anybody that says, yeah, I want to be on the wait list, like, oh, okay. Like, I'm really not sure, because it is only open to the US and the UK. So
Mhm.
I don't have clarification on that part, but I do know if you're based in the US or UK, you can go to bard.google.com and request to join the wait list.
And of course, Google has a lot to lose, hence why they've been sitting on this and refining and tweaking and making it as safe as possible. And as such, we've had a few journalists that have been putting it through its paces as well. And of course, they always try to break it, right? Like
Yeah.
with all these things,
Mhm.
they always try to break it and see.
How can I be
see what happens.
nasty and get some information that I'm not supposed to?
Yeah. Pardon me. So, so far, from what I've heard, the feedback has been, decidedly mixed. There, in some ways, it seems a little, comparable to ChatGPT. In some ways, it seems a little. It's not quite up to what's going on with Bing Chat, because Bing Chat's connected to the internet, and Bard seems to be somewhat, but it's not providing links like Bing Chat does or Bing Copilot. So again, this is the first public version, and they may continue to iterate on that. Tasia, I have two questions for you.
Mhm.
One is that you're going to be doing a video on Bard, and then are you going to do a separate video which compares Bard to ChatGPT
Yes.
or any of the others? Nice.
Yes. So this Thursday is going to be a video on Bard,
Mhm.
which is kind of a follow-up to a video I already did, about what Bard is. But this one we're going inside. We're
Mhm.
testing out some things. And then the following week, I'm going to do a comparison, because there are some noted differences that I noticed today between the two. And Bard is pulling from like the entirety of the internet.
Mhm.
One of the biggest things is that with Bard, you can basically Google it. So if it gives you a response and you're like, I'm not really sure if this is accurate or if this is the right thing, you can just click to Google it and it will give you related search queries that you can
Right.
then click on, and it'll open a new tab so that you can then almost like check the work or check, just to make sure stuff's not wonky in the response. So there's some other differences like that, but it's Thursday. I'll have one of the videos out.
We're looking forward to it. So if you want more information on what is happening with Google Bard and some of the impressions from and to tide you over until you get a chance to look at Tasia's video, there are a couple of links that'll be in the show notes from The Verge. Google opens early access to its ChatGPT rival Bard. Here are our first impressions. Google's cautioning and stressing that the AI chatbot is not a replacement for search. It is an experiment. So one of the things, and this is actually betrayed by its name a little bit, or explained by its name, is that it is meant more for creative output, expression and output than for, say, research. So it's like ChatGPT. Apparently, it's not great at math. It's not great with facts yet either. But as a large language model, it seems to be pretty good with creating things to do with language, whether it's human language or programming language, which are also ChatGPT's strengths. Tasia, if you, not to spoil too much from your video, but any first impressions from the few hours you've had a chance to play with Google Bard so far?
Yeah, I thought it was a little weak in the generative text, like creative text department.
Oh, really? Okay.
Like I did almost the same thing, like the same prompt I did for ChatGPT, which was like write a love story in the style of Taylor Swift. And obviously. And it was not great. I won't give away another key difference. Okay. There is some other key differences there, which do make it a little more interesting. But, I do wonder if I would have sat there and just like regenerated the response, if it would have eventually got it, or if I would have given it some additional prompts to help it along. But it is very quick and accurate when it comes to, for me anyway, with the tests I did for math equations and the like in that type of scenario. And it was the same in terms of learning to pick up where you left off. So in reference to the thing. So write this, I need an email newsletter about my new YouTube. Okay, now write it in a form of a tweet. So it's able to do all of those same things. Right. But it's an experiment, as they're saying, and so we have to
hedge.
Yeah, provide the feedback to say like, this is a good answer, this was not a good answer, and
well, how long was Gmail in beta, right? That's something that Google was Google Reader ever out of beta? One of the funny
I miss Google Reader.
Let's not go there. I'll cry. One of the journalists from The Verge said when they asked for a good Thai restaurant near them, it gave them not very helpful instructions. Simply type in Thai restaurant near me and the search engine will return a list of Thai restaurants in your area. It's like, thanks, I guess. See, at least with Bing Chat, it'll give you links to activate those searches if you want, if it doesn't actually give you the answers. But so again, work in progress. But I think Google felt under pressure to get something open to the public, because internet time is like 1 year is like 7 years, right? So or is it even more than that? So they got to do something to get their hat in the ring and be part of the discussion, and also be collecting the data from the users on how they're using it and being able to iterate and continue to improve. So we look forward to your video on that coming this Thursday. All right. Now, one thing that one other tool, just one more AI tool for everyone that we should point out, if you haven't seen it yet, is Cat GPT. And you can type in anything into there, and it's asking me meow, 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 meow. And then say, okay, what treats should I give my cat? And its answer, meow, 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 meow. Wow. Okay.
My gosh.
And that's basically all it does.
Humans, you guys, somebody developed this.
Meow, meow, meow.
Oh boy.
Now we have to hook this up to an audio generation platform so we actually get the sound of the meow, so we understand what the cat is actually trying to get at.
Yeah.
So you can play with that at catgpt.wvd.io. There's got to be a cat version of everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that it for our stories? Let's just take, before we get to our picks. Yeah, can you believe it? Oh, there's one other little story. Oh, yes, in related to cat. I've been sitting on this since October, and it's not even there anymore. What the heck? There was a story from Gizmodo that was basically saying how your cat knows when you're using your cat talk voice.
I bet.
Let's try that one more. Here it is. Whether they'll actually listen to you is another whole question. So this was some researchers suggest new research has suggested that cats can distinguish their owner's voice from that of a stranger's, while also being able to identify when their owner is specifically talking to them. The findings of the latest indicate that cats can indeed form strong social bonds with humans, whether you believe it or not.
This is a story. Like, anyone who owns a cat knows this.
Right.
Yeah, but it's one thing to intuit it, another thing to actually demonstrate or prove it, right? So like dogs, have been for a while have been able to demonstrate this. I don't know if they've scientifically, but they managed to corral 16 cats, so literally cat herding, to take part in these experiments, which, I think if nothing else, it's good to subject cats to a little bit of scientific torture. Because, we all know that if we were to fall down the stairs and pass out, it wouldn't take very long for them to be gnawing on our bodies, or like smothering us with pillows to like finish us off and then feasting on our flesh, right? Let's just be honest.
You guys are so
here.
negative.
Freaking cats, man.
They're carnivores, Will. They're just trying to survive. I mean, especially if the kibble in the auto feeder doesn't, it doesn't have anything left. Once it runs out, you're fair game. Just saying. So, cat talk. Whether it's through ChatGPT or actual interactions. Let's get to our picks of the week here, if I can find them. Everything is all over the place here. Starting with Tasia. I wonder what your pick of the week, what could it possibly be?
I would like to take you in the next 3 hours through what is Taylor Swift's The Eras Tour. Will, that's enough out of you. I don't need you laughing. I need you to
3
sit
hours
as I go through the concert. No, so my pick is obviously The Eras Tour.
From
it is
our
a
queen,
masterpiece.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Wearing a bodysuit there. Wow.
It kicked off in Glendale, which renamed itself to Swift City, Arizona.
Oh my God.
Get it? Because of the Eras Tour. So, but what I really want to talk about here, I mean, there's a million things I could talk about because she's magnificent. She sang for 3 hours and 15 minutes. I think we got 45 songs. It was
value for money.
Absolutely incredible. I have never in my life witnessed a spectacle like this. It was like a Broadway show mixed with a visual album, mixed with a live show. It was incredible. So the most incredible part to me was that, so we had these really amazing seats. And I obviously bought the Pixel 7 Pro because I was like, my iPhone's old and it's not going to hold up in dark lighting and stuff like that. So Tristan is showing some photos here that those first few are on either 2 or 5 times zoom. So I just need to talk for a second about what is happening with this computational photography, because she is moving. So first up, it's incredibly dark lighting and weird show lights that are flashing and doing whatever. And sometimes there was fog in the air. And then your subject is moving. And then you're on a zoom and it is capturing these photos. And I'm not doing anything to them. I was just I was trying to live in the moment and not be looking through my phone, So I was just trying to get a couple of photos of each era type thing and a couple of videos from each era. And so I would just kind of put my phone up, quickly tap the screen on her to focus. And then I would just keep hitting the shutter button essentially to be well, hopefully one of these shots, turns out to, as she's moving around. And I am gooped. I am gagged. I can't even handle it. And then Tristan, down in there's another tweet in that thread. And you can see some of 4 other shots. And this one, she's looking directly at us. And I was not zoomed in at all on this one. This was just regular mode. and she's looking at us. And then this one, I think, was 8 or 10 times Zoom. I can't remember which I was on, but she's like up in like a tree house. It's just amazing to me. This was a 2 times Zoom. I'm blown away with how it's picked up the color of the smoke in the light. I don't even know how it
When
knew
Tasha's
what to
speechless,
focus
that's
on.
saying something. And here's one with movement.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And then here, so she was doing her famous. So the reason I needed to snap a photo of this was she was doing her famous Fearless era spins with the guitar. And I was like, oh my gosh. And like, I just like literally put the camera up and snapped. And, I didn't even have time to really focus. And so on a couple of these shots, like this one, the pixel does the face on blur like on its own because it's using all its magic and being like, oh, there's a lot of movement in this photo. I'm just blown away. And guys, there's like so many more pictures and videos, but these are just like some of my, like, I cannot, if I didn't have these photos, I would not believe. I just wouldn't believe that I was this close to her. These photos exist. It really happened.
They're very impressive photos.
Thank you. So like while I'm, my pick is the concert, it's also the fact of like this device. Like, oh, I'm sorry, do you need a professional photographer for like your tour? Nope. Just give your fans Pixel 7 Pros and apparently the rest will take care of itself. Taylor Nation, if you're watching, you should be using these photos as promo. I'm just saying.
So was the concert any good?
Guys, I only cried at one song. I'm 37 years old and I did cry. It's not my fault. I didn't know she was going to sing this song live and I can't even listen to the song not live without crying. Like the first string I started to cry and I was like, so it was involuntary. I composed myself afterwards. It was the best show I've ever seen in my whole life. And we had the best night.
I cried during a soccer game once, so no judgment.
Okay, see, thank you.
I cry every year watching the Canucks play hockey. I'm not sure.
I thought you were going to say I cry in the dark by myself.
Yeah.
Well,
Where do I start? Okay, so Will, what would you say your pick of the week is? Try and top that, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to. So, my pick of the week is Ted Lasso season 3. I'm only one episode in. I think there's a second episode that came out today, or at least my alerts told me on my iPad that there was another episode out. So, it's really good so far. I mean, one episode in, and it's pretty much, if you liked 1 and 2, this seems to be playing off that, and it's one of my favorite shows on Not Television.
Ted Lasso season 3 on Apple TV Plus. We watched the first episode as well, and so far so good. I think there was a number of people who were disappointed with the second season because it wasn't quite as happy and cheery as the first season that helped us get through the real nub of the pandemic before there were vaccines and stuff. But yeah, second season came out. It's a little bit darker, and it's kind of digging into some issues, which I think is great, but it's a bit of a different tone. So we'll see where they go with season 3 now that Nate is like for sure kind of the enemy as a rival coach. And how will the team do? Well, Richmond FC, and now that they're in the big leagues, will they get relegated right away at the end of this season, or we'll see what happens. But a lot of all our favorite characters are back, and so Ted Lasso season 3 definitely great choice for pick of the week. My pick of the week, just to be on theme, is my uncle's calling me. Sorry, we went a little long. I have to get back to you. Sorry, Uncle. My pick of the week is, of course, I don't think I've actually done it as a pick, but it's ChatGPT powered by GPT-4. It's available to those who are using who are paying for ChatGPT Plus, which is $20 US a month. So trying that out for a couple of months and putting it to work. But 4 is a decided improvement, which has been great to see. And because we had that little bit of that outage issue, I'm not able to show you the thing that I really wanted to show you because all my conversation history is currently missing. but what you're going to do.
Mm.
But let's just say one of the things that someone was tweeting about earlier this week was how they basically said to Chat GPT-4, "Oh, make a game. Make a clone of what game was it that they had said? Someone did like an asteroids clone. Someone did a Pong clone, and it just made it, right?" And I had it make a snake game, and I saw someone else had done a snake game as well. Then I had to do a Tetris game. I saw someone else did a Tetris game. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop doing what everyone else is doing, because there's probably all sorts of examples out in GitHub and other places. I'm going to make it do a cross between Lunar Lander and Defender.
Ooh.
And gosh darn it, if it didn't give it a good old first stab at it. And I've been iterating, adding features to it. So it's one thing to just like ask it to make a clone of something that's kind of out there and it may be able to pull from, but the fact that it understands the feedback and adds features like, okay, now add levels. Okay, now reset when you rescue all 3 people to a new level and do this. And just like, I haven't done any serious programming since probably university, or maybe even high school, since I dropped out of computer science in university. But to be able to converse with an AI chatbot and have it write the code for you, because you know what you want in your head, and you don't want to grind through the coding. But the cool thing is that you can have it comment the code, so you can actually learn the code as you go. So that's been tremendous. And that just using JavaScript, a browser-based game. People have been doing stuff in Python. I've talked in the past how we've been managed to get it to write programs for the Commodore 64 and other vintage platforms as well. So 2 thumbs up for ChatGPT powered by GPT-4. They're limiting access, and it's going to be more and more limited as time goes on, because one of the other key features we talked about last week is that it's multimodal. So it's soon going to be able to do image processing. One of the examples that was mentioned is how someone took a photo of the inside of their fridge and asked it to suggest some recipes based on the ingredients it saw in the fridge. So it's able to interpret and decode what it's seeing in photos and work with that. And that is game changer too. We're getting into computer vision, and those sort of tools will be integrated into Microsoft 365, the Bing Copilot as well. It's early days, guys. This is exciting stuff. We got Microsoft, we got Google, everyone's competing with each other. Next thing you know, the world's going to end.
Yeah.
But we'll have fun while doing it. You look so excited, Tasia.
I mean, go down with the ship, right?
Yeah.
I just thought you're catching up with your Z's. Okay. So projects, Will, you don't have any beats for us this week, but you've got some next week.
Yeah.
But Tasia, what's your video this week to tide us until Thursday when we get to learn more about Google Bard?
The one that went out is the best to-do apps of 2023. Guys, it's hard for me to remember what happened to me like before being that close to Taylor, because like life has changed now. That was like a different Tasia.
It's a whole new chapter of your life. Everything's
Taylor,
your algorithm has been reset.
Yes, I died. I was resurrected. I died. I was reborn. You understand?
So all subsequent videos on your channel are going to be Taylor Swift, Google Bard, and Google Pixel 7 Pro.
Pretty much.
Got it. Nice. And where can people find your YouTube channel?
YouTube.com/Tasia Custodi.
Look at that. And you can find out more about us at momentus.tv/links. Various individual teams, social platforms, including some of our projects at momentus.tv/team. And you can even find our work in progress. We're up to 60 some odd episodes now have been uploaded to our website. The audio only versions of this program, momentus.tv/podcast. Once they're all up there, next thing you know, they're going to eventually show up in Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that. Once get that all plugged in, but I want to get everything uploaded first. It's just a long haul. There's a lot of stuff to do to make this all happen. So we're doing about a month's worth a day at this point. And in a couple of weeks, it'll all be there. And we'll finally move on to our next chapter of Momentous.
AI chat.
Exactly. We're just going to replace ourselves with Jerry Seinfeld-esque, low poly count AI written scripts.
Yeah, Phil Bronze and Kasia Tustodi and
Works.
Fistin Jutra.
Okay. I think we're
And
done.
on that note,
Will, Tasia, wonderful as always. Gray, we miss you. Hope to see you next week. We hope your week is truly momentous.